Hello, my name is Tony Hanson, and in this presentation, which is titled Recycling Your Society Documents, I'm going to be talking about a new way to view your old documents. I'm going to be drawing on my experiences with the Dallas Genealogical Society and a number of positions there, but a lot of this happened while I was in the position of webmaster, and I'm going to use them as an example and share some of the things that we learned along the way. This presentation is intended for people who have society storerooms that look like this. Shelves full of newsletters and journals and boxes stacked around. And especially for people who answer these questions somewhat like this. If you find that people are not viewing these documents very often, that you're not making a profit at all, or maybe not even making any money at all by selling them, and you're probably paying to store them, and you don't have enough volunteers to really do much of anything with them except let them sit there, this presentation is for you. The goal here is to try to make these documents discoverable and available on your society website and on the World Wide Web at large to make them available for other researchers to access. And in doing this, we've identified an 8-step process, which I'm going to go through kind of step by step, not in a huge amount of detail, but in high enough level so you're at least going to understand what each step is and understand, at least in a gross way, what it is each step entails. So let's jump in with the first step, which is documenting your documents. It's important to know what you have, and you may be surprised as you start looking that you really don't have a firm grasp on all of the things that your society has created over the years. So the first step is to create a spreadsheet of some kind. You can do it in a document or even a database if you're so inclined, but create a record for each document that your society has ever created. You want the title, names of authors, physical size, number of pages, notes about the condition, if good, bad, what have you, and where it's located. If it's in a storeroom, identify the bookshelf and the shelf that it's on. And like a lot of societies, your stuff may be scattered over multiple locations and sitting in people's garages or basements. And initially, you want to document where that is so you know where each one is and more importantly what each one is. Following that, then you want to start to collect copies of each document. Your goal is to have at least one good, clean copy of it so you have something to work with when it's time to digitize it. And also you want to locate missing copies so you can complete the collection. As you accumulate them, you want to store them in a safe place, keep them out of direct sunlight, which causes fading. You want to store it someplace with low humidity and stable temperature, which, spoiler alert, is not a garage anywhere in Texas, okay? You do want to minimize the chance of any water damage occurring, so keep them away from windows or wonky water pipes in your basement, if you have a basement in Texas. And you also want to start putting them in the archive quality folders, boxes, and sleeves. These are containers that have low acid and will help reduce the possibility that the folders or the boxes are going to further deteriorate your documents. This is also a good time to start stabilizing fragile documents. If you've got some old things that are starting to crumble a bit, put them in those plastic sleeves to protect them and preserve them. If your documents are bindings coming undone, and start addressing those issues as you identify them. Once you know what documents you have created and have information about them, you can go to your website and start creating information on a web page. And I recommend creating a unique web page for each document, which at this stage is only going to contain descriptive information about the document, because obviously we haven't digitized anything yet. And if you have the time and the resources, you can scan the cover and incorporate that image on the page as well. So your page will look something like this. If you've got the image of the cover, you can have that. And then you just got high-level information about the document. And again, this is what you're going to be able to pull from that spreadsheet or whatever you've used to gather all the information about the document. This is also a good way to advertise the fact that you have missing documents. So hopefully you'll have members or constituents that have a copy of the document in question, and they can contact you and make it available so that you'll have a good copy to digitize. The fourth step is to then go back and index each publication. And this is where you want to identify the contents of each publication. If it had a table of contents, you can just simply transcribe that. Otherwise, you're just doing a descriptive description, for lack of a better word, of each document. And so you're going to go back and the second time visit this web page and add this content information. Now, again, this is not doing a heck of a lot for you, but it is doing one very important thing, which is making the contents of your publication searchable. So if your web platform supports searching, such as the Dallas Genealogical Society website does, You can go to the search area, and if you type in Alice Morgan in quotes there, so you look for the whole thing, you will see that that name is present in these two different publications. Again, we haven't digitized them at this stage, but at least people are now aware that, hey, we had two newsletters that talked about this person of interest, and perhaps they can go to an archive or make arrangements to get the information from somebody who has a copy. But they won't have to do that for long, because the next step is going to be to digitize each publication. Now, before you press that scan button for the first time, you need to make some decisions and establish some guidelines. First of all, you want to determine what file format or formats you want to create. You want to do it in TIFF? You want to do it in JPEG? Do you want to create PDFs? Decide that up front. Decide what resolution you want to scan at, how many dots per inch, and determine file and folder naming conventions. You want to do all this up front so that you're consistently creating these digital images and storing them in a sensible way. At all costs, you want to avoid the situation where you have multiple people independently making these decisions, because you're going to have chaos when it comes time to work on them. The other thing you need to consider at this point too is where these images are going to go, where you're going to put them once you've created these images. When we started at the Dallas Genealogical Society, we focused on all of our newsletters, quarterlies, and journals, and it's quite a bit of digitization, quite a number of images. And we selected the Portal to Texas History as our strategic digitization platform. And we've partnered with them and have never really regretted it. They've been a great partner to work with. We did this in batches. Didn't happen overnight. Doesn't happen at the snap of a finger. And it does involve some funding. The portal does charge a relatively nominal fee for the scanning and getting the information placed on the portal, but it is money that you have to provide up front. We paid for some of this out of our own funds from the society. We participated in the North Texas Giving Day and made projects out of this. So as we assembled a group of journals or a group of newsletters, that became a fundraising effort for us in the North Texas Giving Day effort. We participated in the University of North Texas Rescuing Texas History grants, which is something they do every year. And that also provided a lot of the funds for what we did. And the Texas State Genealogical Society also has a digitization fund available to partner societies. So that's a good reason to join the Texas State Society and have them help fund your digitization efforts. It took a while, but we finally reached that happy day where we had our documents up on the portal and available for people to view on that platform. Now, one other decision you also need to make at about this point in the process is, what are you going to do with all of those paper documents that you use to create the digital images? And you got a couple choices here. You can say, hey, they're digitized, they're archived, we don't need them anymore, and you can throw them away. You also may want to try to consider having them placed in an archive someplace and have them preserved in case you want to come back for whatever reason and do anything else with them. Local libraries are a good choice. We're very fortunate in Dallas to have the Dallas Public Library, and they have a great archive up on the 7th floor of the main library, and that's where the Dallas Genealogical Society archives all of their records and all of their documents. So ask around and see if your library is willing to take that on. Now, once you have the images available on the server, then you can go back to those web pages you've created and the indices that you've created for a third time and kind of hit the final phase here of this. And that is, you can actually make these links, or the contents become clickable links. So for example, if somebody comes here and clicks on the Old Hopewell Cemetery link, it will take you over to the Portal to Texas History, to the appropriate newsletter and to the appropriate page. And you can now step up and down and read that page and use the navigation tools to step forward and backward and go through that publication sequentially. Now, the really good thing that has happened by all of this is that this information is now available and discoverable on the internet and on the World Wide Web. So anybody that Googles Old Hopewell Cemetery is going to find somewhere near the top of their hits this link, which is a fact that it found it in our quarterly from June 1973 and is available on the Portal to Texas History. And also look further down, probably point to our website as well. But it reveals this information to the World Wide Web, which is very helpful and very useful. And at this stage of the process, you might be willing to just step back and say, yeah, great job, we're done. Now, remember I said it was an 8-step process. We've only talked about 7 steps. So the 8th step is really where it kind of gets fun. Because since you have these digital images available to you, you can do things like create new web pages and create PDF documents using those images. So if you have related articles from different publications published at different periods of time, you can group them together onto a web page. So as an example, in Dallas, we realized we had a lot of articles we had published about the 1850, 1860, and 1870 census, federal census, which were key census records for anybody interested in the early years of the city of Dallas. And so we just grabbed those articles from different publications, different periods of time, and added links on one cohesive web page where you can go to now and see all the things we've published about these early US Census years. We did a similar thing with a project that we'd done on Dallas County deeds. There'd been a transcription effort going on over many years and published in different copies of our journals. And again, we pulled these links all together and made one page focusing just on those specific collections of records. You can also create PDF files. And so for each unique publication, we've done that. We've created a PDF file for each publication. We've OCR'd them so you can go into them and do a keyword search and find names and keywords and things of interest. Now, these PDF files are the one thing that we have placed behind a paywall on the Dallas site. It's a members only benefit. We've justified doing it because, again, all these images are available and linked and imaged or indexed over on the portal to Texas history. We've just made it a little more convenient, and we use this as a way of thanking our members and giving them something to kind of show for their membership. One more example, something that's never really was a publication until we had the digital images together. But this is a collection of Dallas County deeds from Book A, which again covered the early years of Dallas. And we created this document that had never existed before that we now can create because we had the images and it was so easy to work with them. Now, when it came to our cemetery publications, we had many books where we had published information about burials. It didn't seem to make a lot of sense to just scan these and recreate the books. It didn't seem really very useful. And so we took the more difficult route and we instead extracted all of the information about the burials and we made it available in a database that is available on our website. So we now have information for more than 42,000 burials, primarily focusing on the older historical cemeteries in the city and county of Dallas. We're not including the contemporary perpetual care cemeteries, like Sparkman Hillcrest or Westland, because those cemeteries have their own database. We're focusing on the ones that are unfortunately either dissolving because the stuff is getting grown over or disappearing because it is getting plowed over and built over. So that's our focus, and our goal is to try to get records and get them in our database for as many of these old cemeteries that we can possibly find information for. So if you go back to, articles that are published, and for example, if you take Harriet Coftree here and you go back to the website and put in that name, you will see that we have a record for it. In fact, you can go over and view it and see additional information that we've added in there. We researched these pretty carefully and have added additional information that wasn't available in the original publication. And in fact, we're going through again and adding links to find a grave and burial graves if there are records for that burial, as well as a link to the death certificate if we can find that. So we're continuing to evolve the information in the cemetery database and make it available and more useful. So those are the 8 steps, and I know it may look a little daunting to you at this point. We feel that the effort has been very justifiable and very worthwhile. Back in November of 2024, we were recognized as for reaching a really significant milestone on a portal to Texas history when we had our images viewed more than 1 million times. We were the first genealogy society to reach this milestone, and to my knowledge, I think we're still the only one. So we're very proud of that. But the hits just keep on coming. Since then, we've had another 187,000 hits, and that works out to just almost exactly 11,000 views every month. So we feel very good and very proud about the fact that we have brought these documents to life and that they're actively being used by a lot of people around the world. So we feel that the effort is thoroughly justified and are very happy with the results that we have. I'm going to close with a couple of quotes that I think are appropriate. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Now, you may think that this is just too daunting, but if you don't start, you'll never finish. So get out there and get digitizing. And the 2 most powerful warriors are patience and time. And you will need a little patience, and it may take a little bit of time. But again, I think you'll get to the point where the results are just really gratifying and that you'll be satisfied with having taken this step.